Hey, how's it going, guys? Got another video for you, and this is on the Benchmade Protagonist, this knife right here. So, let me start off by saying I've got two Benchmades, and that's the Protagonist, and that's the 940, 940-1. This is one of my favorite EDCs, but let me tell you, I've had issues with both Benchmades, and this video is going to be on a problem that I had with the Protagonist. But this came with a uncentered blade. It came with an extremely sloppy amount of blade play, which I wasn't able to take all that out. I was able to take some of it out. It still has what I consider to be an unacceptable amount of blade play for a $270 knife. For anything over $100, I expect there to be zero to very, very little blade play. And I'm very good at taking out blade play, but this thing just has absolutely no sweet spot, and it's just gonna have blade play. But so I just want to start off by saying that because I also had a bunch of other issues with this. This, I believe, came with a rolled edge, and it's got some spots that aren't going to come out on camera, I don't think. Nope. Not showing up on camera, but there are a few spots on the blade on both sides. I'm not sure if that's signs of corrosion or what, but I just found it strange. So I had lots and lots of problems with this. Got it to the point where I found it to be an acceptable knife, but for the price, pretty upset at how many issues I had. So, get rid of that, and we're talking about the Protagonist. So with this knife, what I did was I bought it for a specific reason, and when I got it in, it didn't really fit its role. So what I did was I ended up putting it away in a pile of knives I got, and decided I wasn't going to use it. But when I got it, I noticed that there was a couple rolls on the edge of the knife that I'm pretty sure I remember weren't there when I got the knife initially. So I was wondering how I did that, because I didn't really use the knife at all. So I'm thinking somehow I bumped it against something metal or something, because there was two rolls in the edge, and I found that weird. But seeing as I wasn't going to use the knife, I decided, whatever, I'm not going to sharpen it. I'll save that for later, and if I find a use for this knife, then I will resharpen it, and then I will use it. But so I found a purpose for this knife. I decided that when I go fishing in saltwater, I always have probably something along this line, a decent folder in my pocket, and I also have a backup folder in my backpack as well. But what I realized is I'm reluctant to use my folders when I'm fishing in saltwater, because if I get any saltwater in the action, that means I'm going to have to take this whole thing apart and clean everything off, re-lube, redo everything, just because I don't want any salt water in the action of a knife, because salt water destroys everything it touches. So I decided I want a fixed blade in my backpack, so my fishing bag. So what I did was I finally got this out from its hiding spot, and then I resharpened it, and then I put it back in its sheath. And after messing around with it, changing out the attachment, whatever, and then I take out the knife and I look at it, and it's rolled again, and I know I just sharpened it, and I know I haven't used it for anything, so I'm wondering what's wrong with the knife. I look inside, and this is where the retention screw is supposed to be, and this is the retention screw right here, and as you can see, there's a flat part right there, and that is exactly what I saw right about here up top. And then what I did was I was wondering if that was actually hitting the blade. So what I did was I pressed down and pulled the knife out, looked at the edge, and the whole thing was rolled to the point where the knife was unusable. So found the problem, but that was a clear design flaw. I decided to take the screw out and see how bad it is, and as you can see, the blade edge clearly comes down into where the hole is. So if there was a screw there, every single time that blade touches that screw, you're going to get a roll, you're going to get a chip, you're going to get something. It's basically taking a sharpening steel, a knife steel, and then running it along the edge of the blade perpendicular to the actual knife blade. So I just decided that is a huge design flaw in the Benchmade Protagonist. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to run it without the retention screw, and I'm just going to have to run it with this, which is unfortunate because what I like to do is I actually like to run it without this, would like to do is run it without this, and run it with the retention screw, because the retention screw actually works pretty well, but as you can see, without it, it doesn't have a lot of retention, so you pretty much need to use the strap at that point if you aren't running the retention screw. What I would like to do is the opposite, run it without the strap and with the retention screw, but like I said, the retention screw destroys the knife. So pretty much have to run it with the strap. Besides that, I was thinking about maybe putting this in and then somehow trying to put epoxy. Let's see if I got it. It's on the desk, but yeah, some JB clear weld, some epoxy, and putting it on top of the screw to the point where it's covered, because as you can see, there is a little bit of space. I'm not sure if it's going to come out on camera. It doesn't look like it is. Oh yeah, there we go. So you can see, oh, camera issues. As you can see, there is a little bit of space there. So what I could do is I could put a little bit of JB clear weld in there and fix this camera. And that would prevent the knife from actually hitting. It would create a little buffer in between the actual screw and the knife, but the thing is I would actually have to put the screw in and then tension it to where I like it and then put JB weld on top of it. And at that point, I think that would kind of make it a permanent, you know, it would make it permanent to the point where I can't really adjust the tension from there, because it is meant for plastics, and the JB weld would keep the knife tension at where it is if I were to do that. So that's what I'm thinking, but I just wanted to point out that there is a huge problem with the Benchmade Protagonist. If you think about buying it, keep in mind that there is a issue with the retention screw, so you're going to have to use it with a strap or figure out how to use the retention screw and cover the retention screw with a piece of plastic or wood to the point where it's not hitting the actual screw and messing up your knife edge. So just wanted to point that out. Might try to fix it, but yeah, just buyers beware. If you guys got any other questions or comments about this knife, let me know. Post in the comments and I will let you know. Otherwise, yeah, Benchmade Protagonist, huge design flaw. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. So looks like we're not quite done with this video, but so I came up with a little solution. Like I said, epoxy or wood. I decided to go with wood. Obviously, epoxy would have been more of a permanent fix. So what I did was I cut out a little tiny piece of wood and took out the retention screw, and then I made the piece of wood so it fits pretty snugly in there without the retention screw, and then I tightened down the retention screw all the way. That piece of wood is pretty well in there and the retention is perfect. Without that piece and the retention screw fully tightened, the retention is a little tight, so I like to keep it right in the middle. But with that piece of wood there and the retention screw in, the retention is perfect in my opinion. It's not definitely not going to fall out. So, and pulling it like that, whoa, almost stabbed myself. Pulling it like that is a little difficult. So, like, you know, you just use the assist of the thumb, release it, pull it out. And that is pretty perfect. So what I did was I actually took a little piece of wood about this size. This is the original one I made, but it was a little too small, so I had to remake it. As you can see, it's flat on top, rounded on bottom, because the shape of this is the same. The new one is about the same length as this, but with the new one, I took the back and I actually sanded down the top of it to the point where it came to a point towards the bottom, just so that the hilt of this knife doesn't hit the front of it and then cause it to knock out this way, because as you can see, the hilt goes in, and I don't want to pull down and have it hit the front and knock it out, even though it's pretty snug in there, so I don't think that would happen anyways. But either way, I don't want it hitting it every single time, so I just made it taper downwards, just so that even if it does hit it, it would just hit it and slide over it. But yeah, so it's a pretty good fix for now. I'm going to go ahead and run it with the retention strap for now. Just like so. I'm going to run it like that for a while. And if that little wooden piece holds in place, maybe one day I will take off the retention strap and just run it just with the retention screw and the wooden dowel. But as you can see, now that that wooden dowel is in there, the blade's gonna run along a piece of wood instead of along a piece of metal, messing up the edge. So no more rolled edges. As I can feel, blade edge is not rolled after running it along the piece of wood. So turns out this video is a fix video instead of a problem issue video. So yeah, that's how you fix the Benchmade Protagonist with the huge design flaw of a piece of metal running across your blade edge. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Any questions, comments, once again, go ahead and post down below. I'm pretty good at getting back at comments, so if you got any questions, I'll get back at you. Alright, thanks for watching.